This ball was given to me as a present from some street children in Kenya. And it's made of plastic bags that they put together and put string around, and they play football with it. And it bounces, and it's a really good ball. And it's much better than the balls that are made in the West that we sometimes send over to them kindly, that just break after a day. These balls actually work, and they have great fun with it. And it's a very simple thing, and they gave it to me as a present. I'm going to share it with you, so I'm going to throw it. And if you're getting a bit bored or whatever with what I'm saying, you can throw it around or play keepy-uppy or play headers. So there you go. Someone's going to have to catch this and then throw it around. Okay, here you go. So that's one ball. And this is another ball. Here, this one. Can you see it? This is an invisible ball at the moment. And it's a virtual ball that we're creating that we're going to change the world. So in the time that I have, I'm going to tell you the two stories. One about the ball that changes the world, and one about the invisible ball that is seriously going to change the world. So the Homeless World Cup, since we started in 2003, has affected the lives of, we estimate, over 1 million people. And all that happens very simply is that around the world, we take a ball into the street where homeless people are and say, would you like to play football? And the beauty of football is that it's really simple. It's a ball that you can make or you can play. And anybody can play this game. You can kick a ball, and you can be any standard. You can be really good at it. You can be terrible at it. You can be male, female, very old, very young. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter the number. In fact, we could have a game now with that ball if you want, half the room against the other half of the room. It will be really good fun, I guarantee you. So this ball is a very, very easy thing to get people involved with. And when we speak to homeless people in the street and say, would you like to come and play football to kick the ball, they generally go, yeah, why not? And then we involve them immediately in a game where they're kicking the ball around. And we don't necessarily at that point talk about their state, because many of them are really destroyed with homelessness. They have nil self-respect, no self-confidence. Many problems facing them. But we invite them to come back and play football. And then over time, what starts to happen is they start to feel part of the family, because they're having to kick the ball to one another. They're getting to know people that are playing football in the projects that we have. And then slowly we start to talk to them about what the issues are that are affecting them, which might be about housing, obviously. It might be about jobs. It might be about drugs and alcohol. It might be about many things. We start to address these problems. But at the center of all of that is a football. And then what happens is that once a year, every single year, we have an event called the Homeless World Cup, where the players get to represent their country. And so the big aim of the players is to get on the team. And the teams are selected in different ways. Sometimes they're selected for the best players. Sometimes they are selected just on the best players that turn up and how they're behaving and so on and so forth, because we want to try and create a peer group change. So the Homeless World Cup, sometimes people think it's just like about an annual event, but actually it isn't. And as you can see from this diagram, it's every single day we're working on the ground. We're working in 70 countries. And homelessness manifests itself now in every single country in the world, from the richest to the poorest. 3.5 million people on the streets of the USA in all their cities, and it's still the richest country in the world. I think it's nearly not, but it still is. And it's got 3.5 million people in the street, and of course in poorer countries as well. And this is our global reach. This is where we are around the world, with more countries joining. So at the moment, we are at 70 countries, but it's going up all the time. Our events, as I say, are around all over the world, and here's some examples. We started, the first one was in Graz in Austria in 2003. We were only going to do one event, but it was so successful there that we decided to have it. We've had amazing growth since we started. As I say, it's over 1 million people touched. And when we did statistics and research into what was happening with the players after the annual event, we found that 80% of the players had changed their lives forever. So 80% of them had got into houses, come off drugs completely, got jobs. And when we first did this analysis, I didn't believe it. I said, this cannot be possible. 80% is actually too high. We never get that level of change. But we checked and we checked and we checked, and it came to be true. And as a result of that, that's why we've kept on doing what we do. And there's our timeline. That's where we've been. We've been in Scotland. We've been all around the world. And everywhere we go, we get massive publicity as a result. And these are just a couple of pictures from some of the events. That was us in Graz in Austria in 2003, the very first one. We play in these small courts. We play street soccer. It's 8 on a team, 4 on, 4 off. Very, very exciting games. If teams lose, unlike other World Cups, the teams don't go home, they stay. We have a kind of plate competition so that everybody finds their own level. So the very good teams play against each other, and the not so good teams play against each other. They all end up with the same medal. It's competitive but inclusive, so People don't like losing, but a minute after they've lost, everyone's cuddling one another. But in Graz in Austria, we didn't know what was going to happen, but there's so many people came that we had to build extra stands to accommodate the people, and that is people cheering homeless people playing football. So can you imagine? Their entire view is changing because the days earlier, they were actually walking across the road to get away from homeless people. This was us in Scotland in 2005. There we are in Cape Town. Desmond Tutu was there. 100,000 people had actually been in the square. The players had marched past under the balcony where Nelson Mandela had made his famous speech. And the president of South Africa, Mbeki, at the time saluted the homeless players. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine that feeling of the president of one of the most powerful countries in the world? That was us in Melbourne with very big crowds where we had this incredible match final, which you couldn't make up as sports people, where Afghanistan were playing Russia in the final. Russia had a chance to equalize in the very last minute, and the guy missed. Afghanistan won the World Cup, and the place went absolutely crazy. I didn't believe it. Then we were in Rio, 2010, on the Copacabana beach. In Paris, we were there a couple of years, and very famous picture of this because Scotland won the World Cup. So there you go. Scotland, seen it. It's not a lie.
So many memorable moments over this week's play in Cape Town. So many lives changed forever. Let's hear from Fabrice.
Critical thing, I just want to tell you very briefly before going on to the invisible ball about two stories, because it's about the players. Always it's about the players. So two very quick little stories. The girl in the middle of the picture here is called Anna, and she comes from North Mexico. North Mexico is a very dangerous place. It's ungovernable, people would say. All her family were killed by the drug guys. Her brothers and sisters and mother and father were killed. And she lived on the street, but then she got herself together away from the drug gangs, got onto the football team, and they have huge numbers now in our projects playing in Mexico. 20,000, I think, they have across the whole of Mexico. She gets on the team. She comes to the Mexico Homeless World Cup. There's 168,000 people have come during the week to watch the Homeless World Cup in Mexico City. She wins the cup with the team. And at this moment, it's after the cup, after what this can only be described as massive celebration. And she's meeting these two people. And these two people are, she is the First Lady of Mexico, one of the most powerful women. And the man standing behind her is Carlos Slim, who was at the time the richest man in the world. After that, these two people put resources into her and her people in the north of Mexico to support the street soccer projects and what they were doing. And that continues on today. That would not have happened under any circumstances, that level of connectivity, unless it for that ball that you're throwing around at the moment. That's the power of what we're doing, creating that connectivity that creates the change. That's a very powerful story, of course, but there's other ones that are much more simple. And the one I usually tell is that around this, in Edinburgh, my home city, a few years ago, I got on a bus, and the bus driver said, "Hi, Mel, how are you doing?" And I didn't recognize him. I went, "Who are you?" And he said, "Do you not remember? I was homeless, and I got on the team, and I represented Scotland." And I went, "Oh, yeah, I didn't recognize you with the bus drivers," and he seemed to have kind of put on a bit of weight and things like that. He said, "Yeah, I got my driving license, I got a job. I have a job as a bus driver, obviously. I managed to get a deposit, and I have a flat, and I'm engaged to be married, and my life is completely changed." So we talked for a while, and then I said, "Hey, listen, you better drive the bus," because all the passengers were getting pretty upset, and then there was this big line of cars behind all banging their horns. I said, "You'll lose your job." So it's not about the big stories like this, but actually it's the little stories, and there's hundreds of these little stories about how people move from the unconnected world into our connected world through this very simple step. There's many, many stories we have here of people that have become leaders now across the world, not only changing, becoming bus drivers, but actually leading organizations. We have a great one here in Scotland. Others, Michelle, who's the second one along there, she plays for Brazil now at football. So we had this fantastic decade of events and all of these things happening. However, this is still going on. According to United Nations, there's 1 billion people almost in the world. I don't know whether that figure is correct. These kind of figures are just unimaginable. And so we kind of think, okay, it's good what we do. We know we're making an impact. It's key what we're doing is making an impact. But actually, how can we take this on to the next stage? How can we take it on another stage further? These are pictures, by the way, real pictures from all over the world. It doesn't matter where this is. It could be anywhere. It could be outside the street here. And this is what's happening. People are dying. And so have invented, this is the invisible ball, this thing called the Homeless World Cup Supporters Club. Because we've got lots of fans around the world who want to support us. But because we're a small organization, the world's so big, they don't quite know how to connect into us. So we're going to build a virtual football stadium with 1 million seats in it. And there'll be lots of things going on in the stadium, including films about our players, films of the actual Homeless World Cup, stories about what they're doing, etc., etc. And this will be global. So we've been working away. There's the 1 million-seater stadium. That's what it's going to look like. That's not even 100,000, I think. We're going to build this thing. And we've been speaking to people all over the world about this. What do you think about this? And the feedback we're getting is really, really fantastic. We're building this movement. And can you imagine what this is going to be like? We're going to get this 1 million people, and we will get there, as our fans, as our supporters, saying, okay, how can we help create a change? How can we help create a way in which we can create this connectivity between the people on the street, through football, through the stadium? So the response we're getting is really fabulous. I was in the US a couple of weeks ago doing some presentations about this, and you know the way that the Americans are just wonderful. This is awesome. We're in. Count us in. This is awesome. So it's great. We're around talking with techie people and so on and so forth. They're helping us create it. And this is some of the kind of little sketches we're doing to what it might look like. And we have some really well-known footballers, et cetera, who are saying, okay, I'm going to take a seat. So I can't say who they are yet, but they're really, really well-known. So what happens is you can go and sit next to them, and then you can join part of the community and start chatting to them. So there's a huge incentive, actually, to get involved here. And then we're going to have all sorts of incentives, like special prizes and so on and so on and so forth, and football games. And you'll never know where this is going to go. But for sure, we're going to create an impact with this thing when we get going. Hopefully, we're going to launch a bit later in the year. So let me just kind of finish here at this point by just saying this. I think if you want to get a genuine connected world, there shouldn't be anybody who's homeless in it at all. I don't think there should be poverty around at all. We're very, very smart. You've heard the previous speakers. Very, very smart people. We've created this whole internet in the world where we can connect together somehow. Maybe some of the earlier speakers said not genuinely, but we do connect. We're brilliant at inventing things, and yet we have people on the street, and we think we can't solve the problem. Of course we can solve the problem. It's really, really simple if we want to solve the problem. If we have a desire to solve the problem, and we want to create a world that's actually just a better place that we might be able to go on the streets and feel a bit happier about, then we can really create the change if we want to, and that's what we're required to do. So that's what we keep doing. That's the story of the real ball, which is around, and our kids in Kenya. This is a story about the virtual one. Keep watching this space. Let's change the world together and make it a better place. Thank you very much.